Good afternoon, everyone. Those of you that are in Santa Barbara, it feels a lot better today. It's at least 10 degrees cooler. Still hot, but we're on page 155 of the Eternal Companion, the Reminiscences of Tara. Tara will explain who she is. I was practically brought up in the theater. Ever since I was a little girl, I worked on the stage with Girish Chandra Ghosh and heard from him about Sri Ramakrishna. There was a photograph of Sri Ramakrishna in every theater in which Girish Babu was connected, and the actors and actresses used to bow down to the master's photo before they appeared on the stage. I think this has now become a custom in every Bengali theater. Many a time I wanted to visit the Bellarmont. Once I asked Girish Babu if he would let me attend a particular celebration. I recall his answer perfectly. He said, "Not yet. When the Lord wills, you will go." And so, in spite of my wish, I did not then visit the monastery. My first visit to the Bellarmont took place many years later, about 1916. I was then depressed and restless. Life seemed unbearable to me. I began to seek out places of pilgrimage. In this unhappy state of mind, I finally went to Bellarmont. Binodini, the finest actress of Bengal at the time, was with me. When I was 7 years old, she introduced me to the theater, and again, it was she who introduced me to the monastery. It was past noon when we came to the Mott. Maharaj had finished his midday meal and was about to go to his room to rest. At that moment, we arrived and prostrated before him. Maharaj said, "Hello, Binod. Hello, Tara. So you have come. You are too late. We've already finished our lunch. You should have let us know." We could see how worried he was about us. He immediately ordered fruit to be brought, which had been offered to the Lord, and arrangements were made to fry luchis for us. We first went to the shrine, then had our prasad, and afterward we were shown around the Mott by a Swami. Maharaj did not have his rest that day. We were brought up to revere holy men, but along with respect and faith, I felt much fear of them. I was impure, a fallen woman. I did it with great hesitancy, afraid to touch him. But his sweet words, his solicitude and love dispelled all my fear. Maharaj asked me, "Why don't you come here often?" I replied, "I was afraid to come to the Mott." Maharaj said with great earnestness, "Fear? You are coming to Sri Ramakrishna. What fear can there be? We all of us are his children. Don't be afraid. Whenever you wish, come here. Daughter, the Lord does not care about externals. He sees our innermost heart. There should be no fear in approaching him." Swami Brahmananda was there at the time. He also was very gracious to us. He remarked, "The Lord welcomes everybody." I had tea at the monastery in the afternoon and then returned home. When I said goodbye to Maharaj, he told me, "Come here often. You were inconvenienced today. Come another time and take regular prasad." This was my first visit to Maharaj, and this was the first time in my life I had received genuine love. A few days later, Maharaj went to the theater to see Ramanuja. Tara took the part of Ramanuja, the famous philosopher, as a young boy. After the performance, I took the dust of Maharaj's feet. Maharaj said, "Very good. May you grow in." The days passed. I was restless as before, burning within. I could find no refuge, no peace anywhere. Everything seemed empty. I started on a pilgrimage to Puri, longing to see Lord Jagannath, the image of the Lord of the universe in the famous temple. On my way, I stopped at an inn in Bhubaneswar. There I learned that Maharaj was then staying at the Bhubaneswar monastery, so I went to visit him. He welcomed me with the same solicitude and affection as before. He said, "Oh, you look so tired. You come in the hot sun. Where do you take your meals? From tomorrow on, come to the mat for prasad every day. What do you like to eat?" "Well, daughter, of course you realize that we are monks and can't provide a feast and delicacies can't be had in this little town." In this vein, Maharaj spoke to me. I was surprised. What kind of a holy man was this? A worldly man would not feel such concern for his sons and daughters. Who was I? Where was my place in society? Down below. I had nothing to expect from the world but hatred and indifference. I had no friend, no relative. This big world seemed to me like a stranger's house. Nobody talked to me without a selfish motive. Nobody looked at me without a selfish desire. There was none in this world whom I could call my own until today. Swami Brahmananda, the spiritual son of Sri Ramakrishna, the all-renouncing monk, revered and respected by all, that is Maharaj. And with what undeserved care and affection he made me his own. I never saw my father. He died before I was born. I thought to myself, this is what a father's affection is like. Is this what a father's affection is like, or is this something greater? I could not hold back my tears. My lifelong sorrow melted as the tears fell from my eyes, and I realized, here is my refuge. Here is someone to whom I am not a sinner. I am not an outcast. I am the daughter of Maharaj. He who has none is Maharaj's own. He is my Maharaj, my Father, my heaven, my peace, my God. What peace I found. Maharaj said many things. I can't remember them all. But what I remember is my treasure in this life. He said, "Daughter, you know what suffering there is in this world. Don't think that we have not experienced any suffering. When I came to Sri Ramakrishna, I was a young boy. I was practicing spiritual discipline, but my mind was not always tranquil. I was restless, and there was the attraction of the world. At times I thought that my life was in vain, for I found no peace. One day I was thinking along these lines. I decided that I would run away and not even say goodbye to the Master, when suddenly I found him standing before me. He said, 'What are you worrying about?' He placed his hand on my head and blessed me. Where was suffering then? What bliss, what bliss. I burst out, 'Father, my suffering is great. I cannot bear any more. I run restlessly here and there. Take away this suffering of mine as Sri Ramakrishna took away yours.' In a tender, affectionate voice, Maharaj said, 'Call on Sri Ramakrishna. He was born for this purpose. You have nothing to fear. Chant his name. For a few days it will be difficult. Then he will do everything for you. Have no more fear. You will realize great bliss. You will know what fun life can be.' We had read in books how Sri Chaitanya and Nityananda came to earth to save the fallen ones. Today I have had such an experience for myself, the infinite grace of Maharaj, as if Maharaj had come for sinners like me. There is nothing to fear, daughter. What fear can be for the Lord's children? What words of hope, what consolation. Maharaj seemed to be extending his arms to us, saying, 'Come all ye fallen ones, come all ye who are suffering. Take refuge in the Lord. He is. Have no fear. May it please the Lord that I'll never forget these words of consolation. Our next reminiscence is Swami Vijnananda. Excuse me. I'm having allergies right now. That's another, everything's in bloom up here in Santa Barbara. Excuse me. Anyone coming into the orbit of Swamiji, Swami Vivekananda, and Maharaj could feel a special spiritual atmosphere. Whosoever entered into the orbit at once a power permeating him. Swamiji loved us, his brother disciples, intensely. It was like a mother's love for her child, and so he could brook no faults or defects in any of us. Okay. He wanted his brothers to be as great as he himself was. No, even greater than he. There is no love equal to his love for us. But he had a very special love for Maharaj and respect for him. There is a saying, the Guru's son is to be respected as the Guru himself. That was Swamiji's attitude towards Maharaj. I lived in the shade of Maharaj's protection, and so I did not receive much of Swamiji's scolding. Maharaj and Swami Brahmananda chose to bear most of the burden of it. One time I did not get the meaning of something Swamiji said and contradicted him. No, holy sir, you have not understood the ancient sages and seers. I saw Swamiji's face turning red. Maharaj was walking back and forth near us. Swamiji told him, Raja, here. I don't understand anything. Maharaj replied, Brother, you should not take seriously what he says. He is a young boy. What does he know? Swamiji immediately calmed down. He accepted Maharaj's words as if he himself were a child, and Swamiji and I were reconciled. Because Swamiji loved Maharaj with such intensity, he scolded him so that Maharaj went and wept copiously. I must mention that the fault was mine. In order to shield me, Maharaj took the blame upon himself. When Swamiji learned that Maharaj was weeping, he became so upset that he rushed into Maharaj's room and after embracing him began to weep too and said, Raja, please, brother, forgive me. How wrong I was to have scolded you. Seeing Swamiji weep like this, Maharaj was struck with wonder and said, Well, you have scolded me because you love me. He embraced Maharaj and repeated over and over again, Brother, please forgive me. Our master loved you so much. He never spoke a harsh word to you, and over a trifling matter I scolded you. He spoke in this way for a long time, and then they both became calm. I will never forget that experience. I have seen with my own eyes what powerful attraction these two great souls, Maharaj and Swamiji, had for spiritual aspirants. People could not help but be drawn to them. Okay, now we have Swami Vishuddhananda. I was with Maharaj in Benares. One day we went to the temple of Vishwanath. There were many other persons in the party. As he entered the temple, Maharaj saw a sweeper cleaning the compound. Maharaj took the broomstick from the man's hand and began to sweep the place himself. We felt he was showing us that if one goes to a temple to see the deity, one must have this attitude of humility. Seeing Maharaj's example, one of the devotees also began to sweep. But it seemed artificial. What Maharaj did was natural. It looked so beautiful and was so inspiring. On one occasion, in the house of Balaram Bose, Maharaj said, "You practice meditation and jopam, you progress a little. Then comes a period of dryness. It seems that the doors are entirely closed. At that time, it is necessary that you stick to your spiritual practices with infinite patience. By so doing, you will find one day that all of a sudden the doors are opened. What a great joy it is then. In spiritual life, many such thresholds have to be crossed." Once Maharaj said to a devotee, "When you meditate, you should imagine that God is standing before you like the mythical, wish-fulfilling tree." Another day, he said to the same devotee, "At the time of meditation, you should imagine that you are in mid-ocean. On all sides there are mountain-high waves, and God is standing before you ready to help." In Madras, while I accompanied him on a walk, Maharaj said to me, "Just do one thing. Always try to remember God. I also do that." In Benares, Maharaj once severely scolded a senior member of the Seva ashram there for committing a blunder. Afterwards, I asked Maharaj, "If you become so displeased with us for our faults, what shall we do? You know we are weak, and therefore we are liable to make mistakes." At this, Maharaj bit his lip and said, "All these things, like my becoming angry, are from the lips, touching his lips, and not from within, touching his heart." Once I was massaging Maharaj for a long time. I was tired and felt I could continue no longer. Still, I did not dare say I was tired. All of a sudden, it occurred to me, had I been in the world, I would have had to work so hard, and instead I had the opportunity and privilege to serve Maharaj, and I feel tired? As soon as this thought came to my mind, all fatigue vanished. I felt great strength within. I began to massage Maharaj with doubled enthusiasm. Just at that moment, a strange thing happened. Maharaj said to me, "All right, that's enough. You need not massage me any longer." Maharaj could read the hearts of people. He had been testing me. Our next reminiscence is Swami Asheshananda, whom many of you had the privilege of meeting. In the year 1922 is a memorable year in my life. On Sri Ramakrishna's birthday that year, I was initiated into brahmacharya by Maharaj. I had been staying at the Udbodhan office in Calcutta as the attendant of Swami Sardananda. With Swami Sardananda's permission, I went to visit Bellarmont for several days. When I approached Maharaj for brahmacharya, he said with a very sober face, "Swami Sardananda is very rich. You are his attendant. You must pay me 108 rupees as my fee. Otherwise, I can't initiate you." Stunned, I replied, "Maharaj, I have no money. It is impossible for me to pay such a large amount. If you don't bless me, I am lost." Then Maharaj said gravely, "I have a suggestion that will solve your problem. Go to Swami Sardananda and ask him to pay that amount for you." I gave the message to Swami Sardananda. With great seriousness, he dictated a letter to Maharaj, which he signed and asked me to deliver. The letter said, "Revered Maharaj, I am yours and everything in Udbodhan belongs to you. Whatever you ask for will be given immediately." I had my brahmacharya initiation. Of course, no money was paid. It was all in fun. A man who is established in samadhi likes to play. He imitates the Lord in his divine sport. He enjoys the fun because he is desireless, whereas we take everything seriously. and suffer because we are involved in Maya. This incident was very meaningful to me. It brought me closer to Maharaj. Previously, I had gone to him and bowed down with reverence, but there had been a feeling of awe and hesitation. Maharaj, as a great teacher, knew that the sense of awe and aloofness is an obstacle to the spiritual growth. It is through nearness and love that barriers are annihilated and intimate relationships established. Since that day, I felt free with Maharaj and went to his room for my morning meditations. It was a delight to watch Maharaj's face. There would be perfect silence, and Maharaj could be completely absorbed. In his presence, the mind automatically calmed down, and tranquility filled the heart. I remember the words of Sri Ramakrishna and felt how true they were. If you sit by a fire, you are bound to get warmth. Similarly, if you associate with an illumined soul, you are sure to get spiritual upliftment and joy. After meditation, Maharaj used to come to the veranda overlooking the Ganges and sit in an easy chair. Sometimes there would be songs, at other times talks on various subjects. Once Maharaj said, "Pray to the Lord with a yearning heart. Tell him freely that you desire him alone. Do not doubt that he exists. Those who are meek and lowly are soon blessed with his vision. If you approach him with devotion, he will surely reveal himself. Do not feel shy because you have made mistakes or have not called on him for a long time. He is the very embodiment of compassion. He does not care about your faults. Go to him with the simplicity of a child, and he will receive you. Be simple and guileless. Without simplicity and childlike faith, nobody can realize him." Another day, Maharaj placed special emphasis on work. He said, "Always remember that through work you are serving the Lord. One can see him with the eye of devotion. If you work with the idea of pleasing men, you will be disappointed. You will find peace and happiness only if you can remember the Lord. If he is pleased, the world is pleased. In favorable or in adverse circumstances, feel that you have none but him and that you are serving him through the faithful discharge of your allotted duties." Maharaj had the simplicity of a child and wisdom of a knower of Brahman. One day he put on the mask of a tiger to frighten the grandchildren of Balaram Bose. After the first cry of fear, one of the children says, "Oh, it is Maharaj. You can't frighten me." Then Maharaj removed the mask and took the children on his lap. He gave them some candies which he had asked me to bring. The next moment, Maharaj was so absorbed in contemplation that I could not ask him a question for which I had come. He was so grave that I did not dare speak. I sat in silence, prostrated mentally, and left. We have not even glimpsed the 100th part of Maharaj's greatness. Only his brother disciples understood him. Swami Brahmananda used to say, "There is no difference between Maharaj and Sri Ramakrishna. Maharaj ruled us all, not by the authority of his position as the president of the order, but through the compelling power of his love." The next reminiscence is Boshi Sen. More than 50 years ago, I saw Maharaj at the Howrah railway station, Calcutta, for the first time. He was returning from Madras with Swami Brahmananda. We students insisted on releasing the horses from his carriage and ourselves pulled it through the streets to its destination. I can still feel his blessing hand on my head as I took the dust of his feet. The next time I saw Maharaj was in 1910. He had come to visit my guru, Swami Sadananda, at the house in Bospara Lane. Swami Sadananda was one of Vivekananda's foremost disciples. After Swami Sadananda gave up his body in February 1911, I saw Maharaj often, particularly when he came to Calcutta from Belur. Nevertheless, as I was then working with Dr. J.C. Bose, the world-renowned scientist, I was not always free to go to him whenever I liked, and for this reason, Maharaj gave me the nickname of Season Flower. J.C. Bose was one of the foremost botanical scientists who found that flowers and plants react to human interaction. Any little service, however insignificant, done with real devotion, never escaped his recognition. Once I was asked to prepare a chillum of tobacco for him. 3 different attendants in turn came to hurry me, but I refused to take the chillum to Maharaj until I was satisfied that it was just right. When Maharaj drew his first puff, he gave me an affectionate blow on the back. "One more chillum like this and I will give you sannyas," he said. On another occasion, I had brought a big fish from my home in Vishnupur for Maharaj, and the train was very late. And when I reached Balaram Mandir, one of his attendants, seeing my fish, contemptuously ordered, "Take that fish away. A devotee has sent so much fish today that we have already given away about 20 pounds. Crestfallen, I went up to Maharaj. His first words were, "Boshi, what have you brought me from Vishnupur?" Very lamely, I replied, "I brought a fish, Maharaj, but they tell me you will not have any use for it because you already have had to give away a lot of fish today." At once he said, "Vishnupur fish is very good," and called out, "See that Boshi's fish is properly cleaned and cooked." Of course, I went home walking on air. One day he was talking about the practice of spiritual disciplines as I was in the act of massaging him. "Do you think that there is any fixed, catalogued price of so much austerity, so much job, so much charity, etc. for God realization? None can force realization out of him." This remark suited me to a T, for I was not practicing any sustained spiritual disciplines at the time. Then he went on, "But," why this inconvenient but, I asked myself, "but if you don't keep up a regular spiritual struggle, you will not be able to hold the experience when it comes." Once Maharaj expressed a desire to see some of Bosch's famous experiments showing the sensitivity of plants to external stimuli. When he visited the Institute, he watched the experiments we demonstrated for him with great interest. That evening, he was still preoccupied with what he had seen in the laboratory. There was a time, he told me, when Sri Ramakrishna could not step on the grass, but would jump from one bare spot to another to avoid hurting the grass. At that time, we simply didn't believe the grass could be so sensitive. From what I saw today, I realize how infallibly true his perceptions were. A little later, he added, "Don't give up your science. You will get everything through this." In April 1922, the terrible news came that Maharaj had cholera. I hurried over to Balaram's house to find out if it was true. I just peeped into his room, and though his back was turned, he immediately asked, "Who is it?" I asked whether I could fan him. "Yes, do." With his permission, I was allowed to join the group who nursed him. 2 days before he gave up his body, he was in a wonderfully ecstatic mood, showering unending blessings on all in the room. For the first time, we heard from his own lips who and what he was. This unforgettable scene has been described by his biographers and need not be repeated by me. The blessedness we all felt at the time has not diminished in intensity through all these years. He filled each of us to the utmost limit of our capacity. It's 5:30, but if you can put up with just one more, we will finish the reminiscences and we'll start on Maharaj's teachings next week. So we have one more devotee that has a reminiscence, and it's just a devotee. Maiman Singh, Saturday, January 22nd, 1916. When I came to the office today, I learned that revered Maharaj had arrived and was staying at the home of Jitendra. I went immediately to visit Maharaj, as I was very anxious to have the blessings of his holy association. Maharaj came out of his room to go for a stroll. Swami Brahmananda met him, and they began to walk along the bank of the river. Many devotees accompanied them, to which Mr. Dutta objected. Swami Brahmananda rebuked Mr. Dutta. Why do you object? These people want the association of holy men. That is the greatest thing in life. Only he who has good karmas can have the association of sadhus. Holy company is very important. You must not stop these devotees. Maharaj said to Swami Brahmananda, look, brother, how beautiful is this open field, how beautiful is the river, how gently the breeze is blowing. This is a grand place. All of this is kindling my spiritual consciousness. In a state of ecstasy, he continued, it is good to meditate mornings and evenings in places like this. The mind becomes purified. The Lord's name is the only truth. Everything else is unreal. To have faith in him, to be devoted to him, to praise his glories, these are the only duties in life. Sunday, January 23rd, 1916. At 7:30 in the morning, I arrived at the home of Mr. Dutta with my friends Ram, Shyam, and Kiran. Maharaj saw us and said, come in. We prostrated and sat down. The Maharaj of Shushanga was present. In the course of conversation, Maharaj said to the Maharaj, you see, you love music and singing. You must remember that God can also be approached through music. Music is sound Brahman. The truth is experienced if one meditates. He said these words with such conviction that they created a deep impression in the minds of everyone present. I said, Maharaj, my mind is very restless. It becomes difficult to practice jopam and meditation. Please tell me, how can I be helped? Maharaj, wake up early in the morning, wash yourself, and choose a firm seat. Command your mind in this way. Mind, keep still. Let no distractions enter. With the strength of the intelligent will, keep the mind under control. Soon it will become concentrated. Then no distractions will arise. A man can train horses and elephants and bring them under the control. Can't he learn to train his own mind? There is no need for many teachings. Now meditate on the words I have spoken to you. Some arrangements for music were made. All prostrated before Maharaj and went to the drawing room to listen to the program. Swami Brahmananda had been meditating in a room nearby. He came out of the room and asked Biren, who was Maharaj instructing? Biren pointed to me. Swami Brahmananda looked at me and said, blessed you are. Maharaj rarely instructs people. You will understand later. I prostrated before him and he blessed me. Biren told Swami Brahmananda, Maharaj loves this boy. Swami Brahmananda said, yes, I know. After 2 or 3 days, Maharaj was to leave for Dhaka on the evening train. I went to see him in the afternoon. When the time of departure approached, he blessed everyone and got into a carriage. Swami Brahmananda and Swami Shankarananda went with him. Maharaj and Swami Brahmananda sat on one side, Swami Shankarananda on the opposite side of the carriage. Maharaj saw me standing nearby and said, "Come with us." "Yes, sir," I answered. "I'm walking to the railway station." Maharaj, No, come in our carriage." I was hesitating. Swami Brahmananda said, "When Maharaj asks you to come, you must obey him. Don't hesitate." So I got into the carriage and sat with Swami Shankarananda. I thought to myself, how many austerities must I have performed in past lives that I may ride in the same carriage with Maharaj? No. It is not my austerities. It is Maharaj's infinite grace. We reached the station. The time for the train's arrival approached. As arranged, my sister came to prostrate before Maharaj. He said to her, "Daughter, the train is coming. I don't have much time, but I will give you knowledge in one sentence. Read the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna regularly every day. That is enough. You will find in this book the truth of all religions." My sister felt blessed. The train came. One by one we prostrated before Maharaj and Swami Brahmananda. Maharaj blessed us that we might attain pure devotion and pure knowledge. Now, that's where we'll end today. And next week we will be on teachings of Maharaj. Are there any comments or questions? People's reminiscences always seem to bring the saints to life, because you were seeing how ordinary people, and sometimes not so ordinary people, are relating to them, and you can identify with that. So if there's no questions, let's see. We'll have our gospel reading Saturday afternoon at 5 o'clock. As you know now, the temple is open from 6:30 in the morning till 7 in the evening, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, from 5 to 7, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, for now. And Sunday, we will have a lecture by Pravrajika Vrajaprana, Seeing the World as It Is. So I hope you can come in person or via Zoom or YouTube. We'll end with a chant. Om Hari Om. Shanti, 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 Hari Om. Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Order.